Mr. Griffith, good morning. How is your wife at this time? Is she recovering okay?
Yes. She's doing fine. No, no headaches, nothing at all. So she's doing well. She's doing well. You know,
Excellent.
they have these these situations. You know, with women when they went in there and the doctors. I mean, we have some of the best doctors in the world there. They did an excellent job. I wish to thank them. But you know, with wives, I told the doctors, I said, when you go in there, it was just something in the back of my brain they took out. I said, you know, the women, wives have this little arguing part of their brain. See if they could find it and take it out. But they just couldn't find it at all. They went in there and they said it was like a vault, and it was just, they couldn't get the combination. So that's what I mean.
You know, I have to, what you just said there, every man listening to this station right now cannot agree with you any less. You know, yeah,
doctors would have made a killing if they could have got that combination.
Boy, you making jokes. Women when they voluntarily go for that, you gotta catch them when they're sleeping. Then knock out, you put them under the anesthesia, the anesthetic, and you fix that. They wake up, they ain't sure. It's good that we could laugh a little bit, given the fact that the political climate is very thick in Trinidad and Tobago. The election bell, it rang a few days ago, so it was loud. We heard it. And as we continue with our dialogue this morning, I have to ask you one question first to kick things off. What are your thoughts on the fact that 24 hours after swearing in a new cabinet, you call the general elections? I mean, once you ring that bell, you have a minimum of 6 weeks to give a date. 6 weeks later, anytime after 6 weeks, you could call it. But you must give a 6-week window. And he decided to go at the end of the 6 weeks, which is the 28th of April. What are your thoughts as a political leader? If you were in that position, swearing in a new cabinet, would you have done that, given the fact that you still had time?
Brilliant strategy. What he did is that the country believes that, I mean, I think even the most diehard PNM person believes that the government failed over the last 5 years. But the failure is based on specific individuals they saw as the cause for the failure or the hurt, whatever, that they had bitterness, hatred, anger, disappointment with. Keith Rowley, Reginald Amor, Fitzgerald Hines, and Colin Imbert. So what the PNM did was clean house. They said, okay, you had a problem with Rowley, he's gone. Imbert is the most incompetent Minister of Finance in the history of Trinidad and Tobago. He probably skipped Form 3, Form 4, and Form 5 accounts because he couldn't balance anything. He's gone out of Ministry of Finance. Fitzgerald Hines was deemed as the worst politician the country has ever seen. He's gone. Reginald Amor is the most incompetent Attorney General ever. He's gone. So look, you all, yes, we failed, but we've cleaned house and we're starting fresh. So this is our new team. So it has been a strategic, this was not based on a rush job. This seemed to be something planned carefully between the previous and the present Prime Minister since last year. How to get Mr. Young in through some type of maneuvering to be Prime Minister, how to be able to clean house and do a purging of the PNM to cause the floating voters or the PNM on the fence to remain with them, and to have the election in such a period where it will catch the opposition with their pants down. We have 5 weeks before an election, and the opposition still have, whereas the PNM has announced their 41, the opposition has announced less than 25%. So I think it has been very strategic. That if it will work for them, it remains to be seen.
Recording in progress.
All right. With that being said, something else I wanted to ask you this morning as we kick things off. You are the head of the National Transformation Alliance. Your current manifesto and the items in which your party intends to roll out in the coming weeks. Are you willing to share some of that with us this morning?
Yeah, sure, but it wouldn't be a manifesto. I mean, I am so sick and tired, and I think the country is as well. The manifesto is going to be the same thing from every single political party. I don't know what it is that politicians have, that every time you start a campaign, and they ask you, well, what it is your needs or the concerns of your constituents. It's always the roads. So you selecting people to be in government because you're bad roads. It's always a bad road. It's a bad road, and then the security, and then you need better health, you need more hospital beds. It's always the same old. The country is fed up with that same boring list. And then the political parties will give, we're going to build new hospitals, we're going to give you better roads, we're going to build police stations, we're going to build fire stations. That is the sign of incompetence. That is the sign of bad management. That is the sign of poor leadership. So what you feel is that, let me fool these minions to vote for us because we're going to tell them we're going to give them more roads, we're going to to reduce taxes, because that is not how you try to influence people to vote for you.
So,
What we
Mr.
have is not a
Griffith,
manifesto.
Mr.
Yes.
Griffith, as the head of a political party who is throwing his hat in the ring sincerely, can you tell us two of your priorities in terms of transforming the country? Because I think as we continue to say that this is one of our most critical elections, what we're really saying is that the country is in dire need of transformation. So transformation has to be at the heart of your strategy. Two things that you think are critical that we need to focus on with or without a manifesto, because a manifesto is a manifesto. You're absolutely correct in that regard.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, it's
that
correct.
Is what manifesto is. It is a big promise of building roads and building bridges and better hospitals and so forth. That cannot help develop a country, because you're making these promises, and how are you going to get the budget for it? The UNC, for example, gave 50 different things to improve health, down to a burns unit in Point Lisa when there's never been someone burned there in 50 years. Each one is going to cost about $100 million. So you're putting $5 billion. Where are you getting it from? No cost benefit analysis, nothing done. So the promises of new roads and new bridges is not the way. For transformation, the first thing it has to do is to ensure two things. I will say. You asked me for two, I'll break it down to two.
Yeah.
Accountability. There's never been proper accountability for things that is done. And that is how I was able to transform what was seen as the most corrupt and the most incompetent arm of the public service, the police service. The police service public trust was 14%. It was changed to 59% public trust by transforming them and making them accountable, measuring their performance. That is what has not been done throughout every arm in government, every arm of the public service. If we make persons accountable, we measure their performance, you're going to lift their standard. Once you lift their standard, it's just like a business. If you're a CEO, you need to make sure that every single person is doing the right job. It's not just on a computer whole day just playing. It's not just involved in manipulation of tender contracts that will get a markup of billions of dollars that the taxpayers have to pay for. So the words of accountability, making sure that persons do their job and do it effectively, and then measure their performance to ensure that there can be rewards or consequences. And that is what we did with the police service. Yes, it was the highest number of persons being arrested and suspended in the police service, getting rid of the rogue ones. But it also, by putting systems to make them accountable, it lifted their standard and the simple things, from the 482 Gary, online reporting, the police app, public relation training, customer service training. All of a sudden, who was seen as the most hated became the most liked. And now, after removing those things of accountability and measuring their performance, they have now gone up to 8%. So it shows that if we could transform what was seen as the most incompetent arm to the most competent arm, and now they're the least trusted again, we can do that with every arm in the public service: health, education, the economy, national security, tourism, sport, culture, youth development. The second thing has to do with accessibility. We give the assurance the same way. I think I was the only give everyone their own personal phone number in case you had any concern. And you know what that automatically did, apart from me not being able to sleep? It meant that every police officer in a roadblock could not abuse his authority, trying to be disrespectful to a lady to ask for a phone number, trying to bribe somebody, because they know that person could call Gary and he could be up in the admin office the next morning. So making sure that people are accessible. Politicians, they're going to be walking all over the country for the next 5 weeks. And then those who win, you're not going to find them, see them, or be accessible to them. Those are the two things that are important. The public knows, listen, all these promises you give me, we don't have a bottomless pit of a treasury. But all I want at least is listen to me, hear my concerns. You become a member of parliament, and your first excitement is to be a minister. Because when you're a minister, you spend all your time in that ministry. And do you know how much time they spend in their constituency office? 3 hours a week on a Wednesday. So you vote for this man for 176, how many hours in a week? 168 odd hours in a week. And you spend 3 hours a week to meet the same people who voted for you. That is disrespect. Your focus should be on your constituency. And that is because they are not accessible. So you become Minister of the Member of Parliament for St. Joseph, you become Minister of Health, you're going to get 3 hours from me for the week. I don't care if that you vote me. My intention is to do just the opposite. You're a Member of Parliament, focus on your constituency. And if that is the case, but the two principles that I will put focus on will be accessibility and making sure that persons, when it is they're appointed, we make them accountable and we measure their performance, each and every person in the public service.
You raised an issue that I think is a very salient one when you said about the time members of parliament that are elected that eventually become ministers have for their constituents. And you're saying that if you're an elected MP, you should pay more attention to your constituents. But I have always long had this concern that when you have a ministerial post, you mentioned not being able to sleep just now, but you were very effective. You created policies, you put things in place, and you were reachable. You had an open door policy. Other ministers may not. But the thing about it is, they become difficult. People are complaining that the number that they was able to reach you on pre-elections, post-elections, that number no longer works. The building that you was paying a rent for, this house that had the colors of your party, you was flag, everybody was seeing, all of a sudden, it cobweb with dust, you don't see it again. The thing is it that the ministers have too much on their plate that they cannot handle their MP duties, or should an elected MP not be appointed a minister and somebody else get that post? So if you want the MP position, you focus on the constituents in tandem with the minister, but you can't hold two portfolios because apparently the balancing act just ain't working out. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'd love to hear Paige's view on this after.
Yeah.
That has become the problem, because when you select members of parliament, you select those persons saying that these persons are best suited to look after the constituents. So, which means a member of parliament is really a glorified councillor, somebody who's there to look after the same thing, the roads and the bridges and the buildings and your concerns and the water and the electricity. That is your job. That is your job. But then what happens is you get 22 seats. You want to make sure you remain as a prime minister. So your job is to make sure that these 21 persons with you are happy. So the best way to make them happy is to make them a minister. Because if you all ever walk into an office of a member of parliament, it is dilapidated, it is old, you get about 3 staff members. When you become a minister, it is 2 Prados, security saluting you every time you enter, 500 staff, you're getting all the perks, you attended all the ambassadors' functions, you attend all of these different things. So you get caught up in that, and you forget who put you there. And therein lies the problem. So that's one. The other aspect is the persons who are selected of a member of parliament, some of them don't have the capability to be a backup accountant in a double stand. They don't have the capability, but you make them a minister. So you have someone right now who's a minister of sport, and she boasted and admitted she never kicked a lime. You have a minister of communication who never had really qualification in communication. You have a minister of finance who can't balance a budget. And that therein lies the problem. We put now, you have your 22, and now I have to box you into a position that you have no training, experience, or qualification in a $5 billion budget. And that is why this is a banana republic. So you put persons in ministries to fit them in so they'll be happy, because you want to make sure you keep their vote to get your 21 to remain in parliament as a prime minister. That has to stop. Now, this is not to say that every single MP should remain as an MP and not a minister. There may be a few that may have the capability to do both. Myself, as a commissioner of police, I work 20 hours a day, 7 days a week. I ended up in the hospital twice, but I had that commitment. I know that as a fellow minister, I will try to contact other ministers for hours and you couldn't get them. Their phone will be off because they're lazy, they're incompetent, they don't have the drive. If you don't have the drive, you shouldn't even be an MP, far less an MP/minister. So there may be a few. But again, it goes to the character of the individual. I'm listening quickly. Let me just quickly add that, like the UNC, for example, their sales pitches, vote for us now, because what we did in 2010 to 2015 shows our performance. But 2010 to 2015, half of those persons were not UNC. You had the Winston Dukaran, the Karen C. Prasad Bechan, the Gary Griffiths, the Anand Ramlogans, the Devon Maraj. And then you had UNC quality people. Some of them could have done both, such as Suraj Rambachan, Botewari, Ganga Singh, Fazal Karim. Now you have Ram Ratiram Vandana, Barry Padrat, who carried a purse for 5 years. You can't qualify that to say that these people could be members of parliament and then become a minister. Khadija Amin. So therein lies the problem. People need to understand, if I vote for this person, am I voting for this person just to be a member of parliament? You have to understand, you are voting for Khadija Amin to be a minister in charge of billions of dollars. So the voters have to understand the concept of our backward aspect of politics.
I think that what I keep hearing is this question of our lack of systematic integrity in Trinidad and Tobago. Our systems are not set up to ensure efficiency, and those two words you used, accessibility and accountability, they simply aren't set up. It is a fracture in our system that allows us to put square pegs in round holes, to recycle people, like what we've been talking about. And that really is where the challenge lies. So I think that in terms of a view, we have to focus now on systematic integrity in Trinidad and Tobago, reforming the constitution, reforming the public service, reforming all of our institutions to ensure that they can function regardless of who is the politician. In a country where things work properly, my humble opinion, you have continuous policy that works 15, 20 years. It doesn't matter who is there, the Republicans or the Democrats. Doesn't matter whether the PNM is there or the UNC. The system works and the country functions, and you simply have dictates that are based on political requirements. You don't have a country being transformed and tumultuously moved around every time you change politicians. And that's why people who get elected as MPs have to be placed as ministers, because you need to be able to control the system in alignment with your political requirements, as opposed to being in alignment with the needs of the country and its development.
Well, that paves the way for corruption. That paves the way for continued accusations of corruption with any political entity. I was about to ask both of you if the Westminster system, or barring that, does the Constitution dictate that once you are elected, you have to be made a minister, or is it just to make you happy, as Gary said earlier?
There's no dictate. There's absolutely no dictate.
Exactly.
It is at the jurisdiction of the Prime Minister, the person who holds that post, to select people either as senators or to place them in ministerial portfolios in his or her cabinet.
Correct. Let me give you the perfect example. Again, if I become Prime Minister 2025...
I was not going to ask you that. Will you put the square pegs in square holes, or are you going to be follow suiting on that same thing?
My intention is to select 41 of the best glorified councillors to be members of parliament. That is my game plan. My concept is I want people to be able to run your constituency the same way those people voted for you in your constituency. You stay there and spend your time in that constituency. That's what you voted. That you went in there not to be a minister. You went in there to be a member of parliament, to be able to fix the roads, fix the bridges, fix the drains, fix the lights, fix all of those things, the water. Be a member of parliament. Seats in your upper house to select the best minds available to have the most qualified person in national security, in health, in education, in tourism. 15, you don't need a cabinet more than 15, really and truly. You put 21, it's always 21, 22 to have the majority, so that the majority of your members of parliament in the lower house will support you. Because I remain as a minister are good. If you keep me as a member of parliament in the lower house, I could always get fed up that I don't have a nice work and the perks. But if I let you know from advance, you are being selected as a member of parliament. And let me tell you quickly, sometimes when you select these 41 persons, they may not be big names. Michelle Benjamin, for example, she's not a big name in being a glorified minister in her track record, but she may have been good as a councillor. And sometimes political leaders want big names. And I can't put a big name to let people vote unless I make him a member of parliament. So I have to show that first. No, I could tell you, look, these are going to be my 41 members of parliament. They may not be a big name, but they are good, hard-working persons who will pull up their sleeve to look after your needs and concerns as a constituent after we win. But these are my 15 future upper house senators who will be ministers in the best, and so they may not even be members of your political party. And all of those things need to change, where it is you select persons only because they are in your party that they make you a minister. If I could find somebody who is so qualified, I think I was the only person in the country's history that was a minister, and I became a minister of national security without being in a political party. Because I felt as a minister of national security and attorney general, you should be neutral, you should be impartial. So when they had that political party, none. I was not a member of a political party as the Minister of National Security. Obviously, I supported the government, but if the government did something wrong, I will stand up against them, such as live sport, and I fought my own government. That is the type of politics and integrity we need. So put your 41 glorified councillors as members of parliament to look after the constituency if you win, and select the best minds available to be upper house senators, to be ministers in that portfolio.
But how do you think the MPs, those glorified councillors, will feel that I understand being transparent by pulling them in during the screening process and say this is where you will be. How do you think they will feel to come and support your party, knowing fully well if I work the streets hard, gain the seat for you, I mean, I would not be given up, based on my, accreditation, I would not be given a...
Tell them in advance. I didn't come here to make you a minister to give you a nice work. You wanted to be a member of parliament to look after the needs of your constituents. Do so. Stick with your constituency. There may be one or two that may have the capability to do both. I recall Keith Rowley in cabinet in March last year. He said, or March the year before, he said he wished he could get 10 Gary Griffiths and he could fix the country. So there may, because I had the capability to be able to, as a commissioner of police, to be on the ground for 8 hours for the day, be in my office for 8 hours, being able to do documents for another 7 days a week. But not everyone has the capability. And if you don't, you cannot put a square peg in a round hole and make a minister who has no knowledge, training, or qualification in a ministry and expect them now to run a ministry in a successful manner. That is why the country has paid an enormous price. The surest way not to make something happen is to put an incompetent person as a minister. He now has the full access to billions of dollars. He could be involved in corruption, mismanagement, incompetence. Let me not even talk about state boards. We have 100+ state boards, and every position is appointed based on your party card. And 95% of the persons in the state boards have no knowledge, qualification, or experience in the state board. You must put a criteria to say, look, this is the minimum requirement to be involved in lake asphalt or whatever. They don't. You just put these people because they were good supporters of the party prior to the election. That is why our state boards, we lose billions of dollars annually because we put incompetent persons in state boards with no knowledge, experience, or qualification in their field.
Would you say that the approach now is, I meet somebody, I think they'll be a good politician. So I'm a fictitious political leader, Gary Griffith. I'm the fictitious political leader. I've decided I've met John. John is a sensible human being. I like John. John is a supporter of me. He's done this fantastic thing. I want to make him a minister. I have 4 seats. I'm going to give John a seat so that John is a certain supporter of my party, as opposed to the approach you are taking, which is, I want to find somebody who is competent in local government and stewardship of a constituency. I leave them there and I pick the best and the brightest. I actually think it's the former as opposed to the latter. Is that what happens now? You meet somebody, you like them, you want to give them a ministerial job, but in order for you to be sure that they're not going anywhere, you have to stick them in a constituency.
You're correct, and that's what happens. So the political leader is forced in a position where, look, if I want Bhutiwari, if I want Suraj Ramachan, I can't tell them, well, I'm going to give you just an upper house seat. They don't want that. They want to make sure that they're in parliament, they have power. You see, the lower house is power. The lower house give you that opportunity that you can't get rid of me, because I could bring down your government, similar to what Ramesh Maharaj did to Basdio Pandey. So the powerful persons who have that intellectual ability to run a ministry, sometimes they demand, you ain't going to make me an upper house minister that you could fire me whenever you want, which is what Kamala did to myself when it is I refused to lie to deal with a matter of a police investigation. So she said, you're not doing that, I'll bust your throat. So be it. But if you look at the upper house to the lower house, that's why the lower house is trashy. It's nasty. It is. When you look at the upper house, sometimes the people who are selected is a degree of class. It's different. Our parliament upstairs and downstairs should be the same way. But what happens is exactly that. You need a qualified person. The person said, if you want me to give up my career, I want to make sure I have a chair to sit on when that music stops playing. So put me in the lower house, give me a constituency. And then when they do that, you're not seeing them in the constituency. My take is, if you want to be in politics, you want to be a glorified councillor, I'm making you a member of parliament, and you have no assurance that I'm going to make you a minister. Take it or leave it.
And it goes back to our conversation we were having yesterday about constitutionality and the support for the installation of a prime minister requiring the people in that lower house to vote for them. That it goes right back to that conversation about majority support in the parliament, and that is the issue. So I wanna take us to another place, and it is about the international criminal gangs that are currently operating, allegedly, in and out of Trinidad and Tobago and causing significant consternation to the people. You are a security practitioner, a security expert, former Minister of National Security and former Commissioner of Police, if you were to become Prime Minister, what would be the first thing that you did to address that very critical issue that's plaguing our society?
Well, we speak a lot about international gangs and so forth. The biggest concern that we have obviously will be the influx of illegal weapons entering the country. The police service for the last 20 years, they will seize about, say, 1,000 weapons per annum. Well, now it's down to about 500-600, but say 1,000. So after 10 years, you seize about 10,000 weapons. We'll misplace 7 containers annually. There's that one night of that one rogue stevedore, that one rogue customs officer, that one rogue security guard at the port, and a container can leave with 10,000 firearms. So what the police would have seized in 10 years inside could get back onto the streets in one night.
Why they in a container?
No,
on the port?
It's shipped to the country. And
yes,
as
it's
he
shipped
said,
in. 95%, over 95% of all the illegal weapons that enter our country come through the legitimate ports of entry. So this madness you hear from all of these wannabe experts about our borders are not secure because of what comes from Venezuela. The weapons that come from the mainland are muskets, things from Pirates of the Caribbean. All of the sophisticated artillery and weapons you're seeing now come from the legitimate ports of entry. The U.S. confirmed that with us, over 95%.
One final...
When you see all this...
Go ahead. All right, one final question because I'm running out of time with you here. Is there any hopes of a coalition with your party and any other entity? I understand that the UNC would have rejected, talks would have not happened. I'm not quite certain what went down, but are there any
so just
expectations?
Quickly, go up the page, Border Protection Unit, put in systems to revamp the police service. My period as Minister of National Security was the highest reduction in serious crime in 31 years. Commissioner of Police, it was the highest reduction in violent crime in 17 years. Public trust and confidence was the highest on both occasions of all arms of the protective services. If we could transform the police service, the army, the Coast Guard, we could do the same with every arm in the public service. So that is my intention. As it pertains to other political parties, I stand on principle. I was fired as a minister because I refused to lie. I stood up against my own government because of life sport. I am not going to be involved in any other political party until they can give me the assurance that they are not going to negotiate with criminal elements. We have a major political party. I remember when I was a minister, we were opening up police station and the biggest gang leader was behind me. I'm telling Special Branch, take his wicket. No, sir, we can't. I said, why? Because the individual there was given the contract to build the police station. Gang members were given contracts, $40 million to build a $10 million police station. I am not going to work with any political party that is going to continue with life sport, color me orange, hoop of life, giving gang members state contracts. I am not going to work with persons who may have been involved in the judiciary. And as soon as I arrest someone, you're going to find an avenue to get them released. Even though that is your job, you can't be half pregnant. I am not going to be involved in political parties who have individuals who want to be romantically involved with every gang member. You can't, as I said, you can't be half pregnant. So I am not going to be involved with any criminal unit fronting as a political party. You have to give me the assurance you're not going to negotiate with criminals. You're not going to give them state contracts. And when it is I do my job, you're not going to turn against me and have me fired because I stand on principle. The NTA stands on principles. If other parties have similar ideologies and principles as the NTA, we will have a discussion with them. If not, I will ensure you will not be in government because you don't deserve it.
Thank you very much, Gary Griffith, for chatting with us this morning. It's always a pleasure to talk with you. We learn so much when we chat on every occasion. Paige, we could wrap there. Thank you very much, and we will talk again soon. All right, have yourself a safe day.